You have not been on air outside of doing updates over on the Fan since free agency began.
Yeah, it has been fun is the word that I would use to describe it. I am overall thrilled with every last move that they've made, but one in particular, and we'll get into that obviously throughout the program. My favorite of the signings, I would say, is probably Frankie Louvu from the Carolina Panthers. I think he embodies that tough, physical nature that Joe Witt was talking about in his opening press conference. The way that they want to play football defensively is not for everybody. It damn sure is for Frankie Louvu. He is a dude that plays with his hair on fire, and I think he's going to make everyone else on that defense better. A huge fan of that move. I like the pass rush rotation that they've got going on here with Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler. They added Cleveland Farrell to the mix as well, and Cleveland's a guy that you just want to have in your locker room, dude that's overcome some athletic adversity in his time. Pretty decent year last year with San Francisco, and it should mean a lot to fans out there that Adam Peters circled him as a guy that, hey, I want to build my team with him as a part of it. So I'm impressed with everything. I like the Biotish signing as well. I think you needed a veteran center if you're going to go with a number 2 overall pick at the quarterback position. But outside of that, man, I've been pretty impressed. It stinks, that they haven't been – I know they – and I'm blanking on the last name – of the pronunciation of the last name of the Chiefs guard that they brought over. But outside
Nick Allegretti.
Love his story. There's a really good clip out there of Travis Kelce talking about him on New Heights.
Yeah.
His podcast with Jason that I think is just brilliant. But, kind of interesting the way that they've decided to go after the interior offensive line market. There's some big splash moves that were made. Robert Hunt got big-time money. We saw Dotson get big-time money with the Rams. So it's interesting that Washington's kind of stood pat there outside of the Allegretti signing, but I love everything they've done, but one move in particular, and I'll get your thoughts before I give that.
So I'm very curious to know what the one move is, but Allegretti, like left guard, fine. I think he can compete. Maybe they're intrigued by some of the guys in-house, whether that's Chris Paul or Sadiq Charles.
Sadiq just signed with Tennessee yesterday.
Oh, there you go. So Sadiq, that's right. Sadiq's gone, but like Chris Paul's still floating around, and they probably look at the draft and go like, maybe we can get someone in the 3rd, 4th round that's a starting caliber guard and let these guys compete it out. Allegretti probably going to be your starter, but like if he's your starter, that's fine. Yeah. But also you got to think of cap management long term. Yes. Spend big money now. What do you do when Sam Cosmi's up in a couple of years? Because that dude's a freaking baller. Yeah. The way he plays ain't for everybody. It's certainly for a Dan Quinn type of team. And so Sam Cosmi's a guy you're going to have to pay in a couple of years. And how much do you want to pay your guards, plural? The hope is that if you have a stud at right guard, then your center can slide left a little bit more, obviously, and help out that guy. And you don't have to pay your left guard massive. And I think the other thing is you hope you have a stud at left tackle. Like that was the formula forever was, Trent Williams at left guard or left tackle, Brandon Sheriff at right guard. And then you can kind of get pretty solid players everywhere else and have a great offensive line. You don't need to have great players at every position. How you play together as a unit is more important. So I like the way they've attacked that. I think, again, like Biotish, necessary for a rookie quarterback like that. Louvu, agree, love that. So who's the guy that you don't like?
And before I get to that, Tom Pelissero is the one that broke the Allegretti signing. He said that Washington's got a starting left guard. If they are handing him the starting left guard job, I have other major questions about how they're going to handle competition, but we know how things get broke. That's normally coming from the agent, so I'm going to ignore that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ignore that. The one signing that honestly made me angry, and I haven't been angry since the regular season after probably the Giants lost the second time. That's probably the last time I was angry about this football team. Why in the hell, if you are trying to groom a young quarterback, if you are trying to provide the ideal infrastructure for a young quarterback, why in the hell would you sign Marcus Mariota? A quitter. I don't want that in my quarterback room. He quit on the Falcons. He was embarrassing during the quarterback series. He wasn't in it after he got benched. And think about it from this vantage point. If Marcus Mariota was so damn good or was a quality backup, the Eagles wouldn't have let Jalen Hurts limp around on one leg for 8 weeks and completely throw up all over themselves down the stretch if he was any good. So Marcus Mariota, I'm out on. I would love an explanation on that because how does he make this football team better? Are we kidding?
First, you know how NFL players work, right? You're a starter, you play, unless you can't. So the idea that they were going to bench Jalen Hurts.
He was hurt.
No. Or yes, he was hurt. He was not injured. Okay. Right? There's a difference between hurt and injured. Injured, can't play. Hurt, can play, might hurt performance. But as a starting quarterback, that dude's not coming off the field. There's no way. Also, they were 10-1 through 11 weeks. Of course, that was like, hey, we just got to win one more.
So they could have rested him. They could have afforded to rest him. That's my thing.
I mean, maybe that's a botched job by Nick Sirianni, but like Jalen Hurts is not coming off the field. To make that any kind of reflection of Marcus Mariota's nutty. Like, that's just silly. And you know better than that. You've been around. You have watched the NFL long enough to know how that goes.
I get that, but why risk further damage to the biggest asset in your franchise because you're scared to play the other guy?
It's not about being scared to play the other guy. It's about that quarterbacks don't come off the field.
Yes.
Like, that is the whole history of the league. You have to, I mean, Pat Mahomes, think about him in how many playoff games now that he's got his ankles rolled up on, and he goes out there and he does the damn thing because he's him. And if Andy Reid is like, I mean, Andy Reid tried to pull Pat off the field, and he threw a hissy fit like a child, and then went out there and was great. And like, it's because he's the starter and it's his job. And in some ways, when you have that much money and that you're the franchise guy, like, that's how it goes. I'm not saying that you're incorrect in that it probably was the smarter and more prudent move to give Jalen a couple of weeks off, especially considering they were 10-1. But that's not what we're talking about, and that's not a reflection of Mariota. That's the nature of the league. That's not about Marcus. So that would be thing one.
Just don't like it. So the way I read the deal is he could be worth up to $10 million,
correct,
meaning it's an incentive-laden contract. So I'm not going to nitpick about other preferred veteran backups that may have went for a little bit more of a cap hit, but I don't like it.
So,
I don't like it because if you're going to bring in a veteran quarterback, bring in one that's good.
So here's the other part of this, and I'm glad you brought up the quarterback series and Atlanta. And this is where I think if I was, and I'm not going to like pull the "you're a young guy, you don't know anything" card, but I'm just going to try to offer some perspective, right? Because I think you're what, 26? 26. I think when I was 26, I would have said the same thing sitting where you are. Exact same thing. I'm 34 now. I don't have children yet. I do have a niece who I adore and think the absolute world of. And if you remember in that quarterback series, about the same time Marcus is getting benched, he's about to welcome a child. And that time with a newborn is so precious that I cannot hold it against him. And I wish the NFL as a culture was more accepting of exactly what Marcus Mariota did. Now, of course, does it happen in conjunction with him getting benched? Yes. Does he leave the team if they're in the middle of a playoff run and starting? Probably not. But the idea that he was like, okay, I got benched. You guys are going with the kid. I get it. I'm going to go spend time with my child. I just merely don't have a problem with, because I think that time is so precious for a parent and a father and his wife and that newborn, that criticizing him for that is just, I don't want to say it's like out of bounds and it's impossible to bring up as a thing, but I just think that's really important perspective, that now as someone who's a little bit older and again, I don't have children of my own, but like I've started looking at that time and somewhere in the much more near future than it's ever been for me. And obviously having a niece that I've watched grow up over the last 2.5 years, like I just think my perspective on that is totally different than it would have been 10 years ago or 8 years ago when I was your age sitting in that chair.
And I completely respect you not crapping on me as a young 26-year-old and understanding that I'm not some malicious dude.
Of course.
I just look at it from the vantage point of, dude, you're going to pay millions of dollars to be an NFL backup quarterback. I'm sorry. You got to know what comes with the profession. Now, we see guys miss games because of the birth of their child, but they return. He left for the rest of the season, Craig. That's my thing.
But
why be selfish? And you people are going to get mad for saying that he's being selfish, but I think it's selfish to the rest of his teammates that
But he's the backup quarterback.
He's the backup quarterback, meaning he's one snap away from playing on a team that was fighting for their playoff lives during that year.
And if he decides that his time, like paternal leave is multiple weeks.
Yes, it is.
Right? Like in a normal non-NFL world, And the fact that he wanted to take that as a human being, I'm just not going to hold against him. And I realize that there's probably fans that are listening to us right now going like, Craig, yes, thank you for saying that. We need more people saying that. And there's other people that go, if I was getting paid what he was getting paid, like, sorry, I'm not doing that. But I just think that
I see it from the other side, though.
Yeah, and I get, to be totally clear, like I get what you're saying, because that is the culture of the NFL. That is the norm, that you sign up and it's part of the season and it is what it is. Yeah. But when he got benched, and I will also say this is much more NFL-y than it is human. Arthur Smith doesn't seem like a joy to get along with. And
so those probably a little bit of stress relief.
Netflix documentaries are not always the most journalistic. And so I also wonder, like, they're hella entertaining. I watch Drive to Survive, like I watch Breakpoint, I watch Quarterback, like I watch a ton of these. Their Netflix doc series are phenomenal entertainment. I have learned over time watching enough of them that, and also being a consumer of now, like I watch Formula One for real, not just what goes into the series. And I'm like, they don't always nail the exact, like there's a little dramatization for effect. And so I also wonder if there's kind of a subplot of Arthur Smith was a pain in Marcus Mariota's tail, and he was like, I can either be the backup quarterback to Desmond Ridder and have to deal with Arthur Smith, or go be a dad to my newborn. And he was like, I know which door I'm going through. Right. That's an easy decision, and I am not going to fault him. But I think he is a guy, if we're going to talk about why you actually bring him in, right? Mm-hmm. Forget trying to dispel the negatives.
Yes.
On the positive side for Marcus Mariota, former number 2 overall pick himself, has been through a lot, has seen a lot. Very, very good, relatively speaking. The strength of his game, I'll put it that way, because say that Marcus Mariota as an NFL quarterback is very good at anything is probably stretching it based off his career. But the strength of his game and what he's been doing since he's in college, that RPO, get on the move type of stuff. And so whether it is a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May, that is going to be a part of this offense, I would imagine. And so he's got a lot of experience, and he can say, hey, when I'm in the pocket and I'm looking at the linebacker to read him, or my eyes are here, like he can give that experience better than anyone else in that quarterback room. And there's a lot of dudes in that quarterback room. There is Cliff Kingsbury. There is David Blau. There is Brian Johnson. There is Tavita Pritchard. None of them have remotely the NFL experience under center or in the gun as Marcus Mariota. That is a very valuable thing, a multi-year starter. And I really do think that is something that we need to consider here and why he is valuable. Would I have picked Tannehill over him if Tannehill was willing to come? Yes. If Jacoby was willing to come, I would have paid what they paid Jacoby. But it's got to be a two-way deal, and that's kind of where I see the quarterback situation. They probably got the best guy they could.
So, and this is embarrassing that I'm asking this. Gardner Minshew, was he available?
I mean, theoretically, he was available in that he was a free agent.
That would have been the guy that I would have locked in on because he has all the same traits, and he's played under Mike Leach and really knows what they want to do in that offense. And I think he's had more success in the NFL as Mariota, even though he's not a number 2 overall pick.
Sure.
I think his personality would have been great for this locker room.
He's a hell of a personality, and maybe that's, well, again, this is a two-way street thing, right? Mm-hmm. Minshew goes to Denver, yeah? Where does Minshew wind up?
Is he still out there? I thought he was still out there.
No, he's signed.
He's with the Raiders.
That's right. He went to, I was like, AFC West.
For a chance to compete for the job.
Correct.
Okay.
And so Minshew here probably doesn't get that. He knows that he is at the mercy of the number 2 pick. And the thing is, Mariota might wind up starting for this team. And I think that, like,
can we go to break? No, I'm joking.
No. Here's what I would say. Like, this is going to be awkward because I think Sam Howell is a better quarterback than Marcus Mariota at this stage in their careers. Yes. But giving the vet, like, the nod and being able to be like, hey, you're going to go do what Marcus did, where Sam might have a little more success, but it's going to be a little more wild and crazy. Like, setting that blueprint, thinking long-term, not just short-term, is going to be the play here. And it's hopefully only going to be a year or two where they can get some of the blue-chip talent in the draft, and they're really good. And shoot, if they get quarterback right, if they get their C.J. Stroud this year, who knows? Like, this is the exact formula that Houston followed last year. And they could absolutely pull a Houston and, like, trade up and find themselves. If they want to trade 36 and 40 together package, it doesn't get you to 21. That gets you in, like, back towards the top 10.
And that's what I would be doing if I was them, especially if Olu Fashanu begins to fall, because it feels like his name in this pre-draft process has kind of been tainted a little bit, that would be a guy that I go up and get. I put that out on Twitter yesterday. Would Commanders fans be open to trading 36 and 40 to go up? I honestly, Craig, is that via the Jimmy Johnson metric that gets you all the way up?
I'm looking at
awesome.
I'm looking at this right now. So the 36th pick is worth 540 points. The 40th pick is worth 500 points. So that's 1,040 points. That puts you at pick 13 or 14.
Which is occupied by the Raiders.
Vegas and New Orleans.
New Orleans is the team, knowing that they're in salary cap hell. They just need as many good football players as possible. I would be running to the podium to do that. And you know this, Craig. There's going to be a run on tackles and wide receivers in this first round. I don't want to play that game where I'm stuck, at 36 waiting for who falls to me, because guess what? Probably fell to you for a reason. So if you identify a guy, Mims, Latham, that they're probably going to go in that 13 range. What you hear about Latham now is some people may have Latham as the first tackle off their board. So it's interesting the way this is all going to play out. Perfect year to need a left tackle. It is my number one concern right now. I know our colleague Chris Russell and others have thrown around the Tyron Smith idea. I'm all on board with bringing in a veteran that knows how to do things the correct way. Dan Quinn and company probably know him really well from his 100%. Time in Dallas. I'm okay with that. I'm a big Corin Lucas fan. I'm okay with bringing back Corin Lucas and allowing him to either compete for your left tackle job with the rookie and the loser be the swing tackle, or however you want to do it. Not in the market.
To me, left tackle is a yes and position. You need a vet,
yes,
and you need a rookie.
Yes.
And by the way, this is, I think that people don't actually look at the value charts and realize, because there's package 36 and 40 and trade up to 22. And I'm like, no, I got great news for you. You don't have to do that, because pick 100 is actually worth 100 points. And pick 36, let's say, is worth 540. So you package 36 and 100, that gets you back to 29 on the back end of the first round.
Which may be where you can get a Jordan Morgan out of Arizona or somebody like that
totally.
In that spot. So
totally.
I'm on board with it. Based on the way the first initial wave is gone for them in free agency, I don't think you have as many pressing needs along the roster as you think. Frankie Louva was an interesting story in Carolina because he comes over after being a special teams war daddy with the Jets, and then they give him defensive snaps in Carolina. There's a guy that we just signed, and maybe I got a little bit of bias because he's a local cat and I know him pretty well. I think Keandre Jones, the linebacker that they brought in, is going to impress on special teams and may earn some snaps on the defense depending on what type of role he's given. So I feel like linebacker is all of a sudden not your most pressing need anymore, and that's where people thought you would go with 36 and 40. I think you trade up and solidify your left tackle for the next 10 years.
No, I mean, I'm totally on board with that plan. But also, if what's Peyton Watson, I think is the kid's name from NC State?
Peyton Wilson.
Peyton Wilson, yeah. So, is Peyton Watson a former NBA guard? Anyway, Peyton Wilson,
yes.
He was of course. If anyone knows me well enough, random old NBA players.
That's your niche.
I'm your guy. But Peyton Wilson out of NC State falls, and and that's the thing, if you go get Tyron or Bakhtiari or Jonah Williams or whoever, and you have your starter, and all of a sudden that dude falls, and you're like, you know what? Everyone else we have on our board right now is tier 3. That kid's a tier 2. We think he's tier 2. Yeah. You take him, and you don't think twice about it. That's the beauty of what they're doing right now, building the floor, the foundation under this roster in a way that it hasn't existed. Any other? We got 2 minutes left. Anything else? Anything else stick out to you from free agency, or hey, what are they doing here, or dislike?
I think they got to bring in another body at the cornerback position. I don't know if they addressed that early in the draft. I just think they're too thin there. I wouldn't overpay for a guy like Kendall Fuller, who's going to have a pretty strong market amongst the contenders. I love the Jeremy Chin signing. If Jeremy Chin can stay healthy, and I love Louvu, if Chin stays healthy, he becomes the best free agent signing they had. He has got real juice in terms of rushing the passer, in terms of playing in the box. He can tackle. He can cover tight ends. I don't want him playing deep half safety. He's not some interchangeable cat, but he plays that nasty physical brand of football. And you see a guy roaming around the line of scrimmage at 6'4", 220. It raises your eyebrows a little bit, Craig.
Yeah, for sure. The other position that I think they need to make a move at is wide receiver. I think they need to draft one, which is the easiest thing ever this year. They're all over the place, but I think there's enough good dudes out there. I'm gonna throw 1, 2, 3 names at you, yay or nay, and assume pretty low money on all of these guys.
Okay.
Josh Reynolds from Detroit.
Nay.
He's obviously got the Lance Newmark connection there.
Yes.
Mike Williams, Chargers.
Yeah.
Yay, I agree with that. But if you want to go different route, instead of being like we go big, we go small, Hunter Renfrow.
Very much hell yes. In Cliff's offense, Hunter would be a 100-catch guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would get the targets, but
he's going to be open all the time.
Right. Exactly. And that's where I'm getting at.
And I would also like him in the room with Jahan to be like, this is how you run routes. Like, you are savvy at this. Yes. Let me teach you a little leverage trick. Let me teach you a little this trick, play strength. Like, that dude was money a couple years ago.
He was. One more thing real quick. Commanders fans may be upset at this. Zach Ertz, I think they want him to be the starting tight end, and they're giving him an opportunity to resurrect his career here in D.C. I don't know if they're going to be too much more aggressive at tight end. So there's that.
Yeah, I tend to think that that's probably true, but I also think he might have been the best guy on the market. Like, it's not a good free agent tight end class. That doesn't mean they won't draft someone, and they probably will. But if your tight end room is in a offense, by the way, that runs a ton of spread stuff with very minimal tight end usage. Although Cliff in his final year did a lot of 13.
Because of
three
Zach,
tight ends.
I feel like.
Yeah, is Ertz, Armani Rogers, and John Bates. Like,
I can roll with that room.
But don't
forget about Cole. Cole, he may finally get unlocked this year.
Maybe.
Ooh, I know
if
that.
Cliff can't unlock Cole Turner, then Cole Turner can't be unlocked in the NFL because he is meant to be. He's a glorified wide receiver. I just don't think he's that good. So
fair.
We'll see. They already cut Curtis Hodges. I think Cole Turner's not too far behind him out the door, but we'll see. Lynnell Willingham, if news breaks, he'll have it over on 106.7 The Fan. And then when are you back in for overtime and such?
I got to be politically correct with this. If the Hoyas play as they've been playing all year, I'll be on overtime tomorrow night, 6:30 to 9:45 over on The Fan. If they shock the world and beat Providence, I don't know when you'll hear from me again.
That's the Ed Cooley game. I mean, you never know.
They got the belt put to their ass earlier when they played, so there's that.
Well, there is that. Lynnell Willingham, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, a special early edition on a Wednesday. Normally do it at 5:30. We're going to do it at 5 o'clock because our show ends at 6 because Maryland, speaking of teams that need to have a little magic to make the postseason, we are off at 6, so Never Read the Comments is next.
Hey, this is D.A., and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 9